Good evening, everyone. I'll call this land use planning meeting to order at 6:30 p.m. by formally recognizing that we are meeting on Aboriginal land that has been inhabited by Indigenous peoples from the beginning. As settlers, we're grateful for the opportunity to be good stewards of this land and thank all the generations of people who have taken care of this place for thousands of years. In particular, we acknowledge the proud heritage of our neighbors from the Alderville First Nation and the Mohawks of the Bay of Quinte. I have a motion moved by Councillor Bateman and seconded by Councillor Anderson that Council approve the March 9th, 2020 planning meeting agenda as presented. Is there any discussion? All those in favor? Are there any opposed? The motion is carried. Are there any declarations of pecuniary interest, and if so, please state the general nature thereof. There are none noted. We have no delegations this evening. We have no statutory public meeting this evening, so we move in straight into planning and development reports. Our first report is with regard to the Butler Creek condominium land use planning application. And Mr. Tai, we've read your report. Do you have anything to add or highlight?
Only to advise Council that subsequent to forwarding all of the staff and agency review comments to the applicant, RFA Planning, there will be a review meeting with the applicant and developer and Lower Trent later this month.
Thank you. And I have a motion moved by Deputy Mayor Vink, seconded by Councillor Rowley, that Council receives the report regarding the proposed Butler Creek condominiums for information as prepared by the Municipal Planning Consultant. Is there any discussion? Councillor LeBlanc.
So, through you, Chair, to the planner, these drawings. So tonight we're receiving the second one.
Through the
second
chair,
phase.
That's correct. Yes.
Right. Is the first one still on the table too?
The first one, subject to further commentary, the first one has been given a thorough review by internal staff, as well as the ministries and agencies, Lower Trent. And as a result of the open house information meeting that the developer held back in November, I believe, they then submitted concept number 2, which has some changes to the internal roadway. So to answer your question, I guess all concepts are on the table, and that will be the subject of discussion with the staff later this month. Yeah.
Deputy Mayor?
And for clarification, tonight we're just receiving this as information. We're not actually making any kind of decisions.
That's correct. Through the chair, there will be no decisions of council this evening. In fact, staff are reluctant to bring it back to council in the future until all issues are resolved to staff satisfaction.
So we don't have a potential date when this would come forward at this stage? For a decision?
Optimistically, April. It depends on the response the municipality receives from the applicant later in the month of March.
Thank you. Councillor LeBlanc.
Through you, Chair, just one more question for clarification. What is the difference between a normal planning and a condominium planning? How does it affect?
Through the chair, the Planning Act acknowledges development by plan of subdivision or plan of condominium. If a developer wishes to opt for a plan of condominium, then he also has a second act called the Condominium Act that he must abide by, but essentially they're one and the same. It's just another way of dividing land for individual ownership. However, with a condominium, any common areas are owned by the condominium corporation, whereas in a subdivision, everything is privately owned or municipally owned. There are no municipal responsibilities in a condominium. The municipality does not take over the road, the sidewalks, or any of the services.
Thank you. Any further comments or questions? Councillor Tadman?
Thank you, Mayor. And before this, is there going to be another open house meeting, a public meeting for this?
Through the chair, there There will be a statutory public meeting, at least one. However, whether or not the developer chooses to have another informal open house would be up to him or his consulting team. The municipality had no relation to the informal open house that was held. That was entirely on the back of the developer.
But we do have a responsibility for the public meeting.
At least one,
Yeah,
yes.
okay.
Any further comments or questions? All those in favor? Are there any opposed? The motion is carried. Our second report is with regard to Hamilton Woods subdivision. Mr. Tai, do you have, we've read your report, do you have anything to add or highlight?
Nothing further, subject to any questions.
I have a motion moved by Councillor Tadman, seconded by Councillor Bateman, that Council receives the report regarding a request for a 3-year extension of draft plan approval as prepared by the municipal planning consultants, and that Council resolves to grant an extension of draft plan approval for the Hamilton Woods subdivision east and west, and further that the revised lapsing date for the draft plan approval be December 16th, 2023. Is there any discussion? Councillor Bateman.
Thought you were going that side. I just want to, if I can get Daryl to, I sent a question to Daryl earlier. My question to Daryl was if it had any impact positively or negatively on the ECA. So I don't know if you want to explain to I don't think, you said it didn't, so.
Mr. Tai.
Through the chair, the ECA that has most recently been issued for Hamilton Woods is for Phase 2 and the Harbor Pond expansion. Any subsequent phases would require either a new ECA or an amendment to the existing one, and that would be applied for by the developer as the development proceeds.
If it was required.
If it was required.
Thank you. Councillor LeBlanc.
Through you, Chair. When you say the 3-year extension, if you look on their map, Hamilton Woods subdivision phase planning, you see the different colors: yellow, green, red, brown, pinkish, and grayish. Is it for all of it, the extension for all of it, or is it just for the phase 2 that he's building on now?
It's for the balance of the phases, 3, 4, 5.
Through you, Chair.
Go ahead.
It doesn't mean that we're giving him permission to build on those yet.
No, absolutely.
We're just extending.
You're just extending draft plan approval. He will need to go through final approval, inclusive of a subdivision agreement and all of the administrative agency sign-offs prior to any subsequent final approval.
Could I have one more question?
Sure.
Thank you, Chair. When I look at the stormwater management pond, and I read that report back when, it was an approval for all of these phases, plus additional phases, plus also the condominium was attached to that, to the pond that doesn't have to be enlarged, because all these phases were part of it.
That's correct.
Okay, thank you. I just want to clarify.
Anything further? All those in favor? Are there any opposed? Motion's carried. Next report is with regard to Roslyn Estates subdivision. Mr. Tai, we've read your report. Do you have anything to add or highlight?
Nothing further, subject to questions.
Thank you. I have a motion moved by Councillor Bateman, seconded by Councillor Anderson, that Council receives the report regarding the Roslyn Estates subdivision Phase 2B as prepared by the municipal planning consultants, and that Council receives and approves the amended M plan for lands described as part of Lot 2, Concession 2, and part of Lots 9, 10, and 11 north of Sanford Street, Registered Plan 28, and otherwise attached to this report, and direct staff to sign the final plan for the purposes of registration. That Council hereby grants final plan of subdivision approval of Roslyn Estates subdivision Phase 2B under authority of Section 51, subsection 58 of the Planning Act, and that the final approved amended M plan be registered within 30 days of the date of the approval. That Council directs staff to forward the subdivision agreement to the owner-developer for execution. That Council hereby enacts a bylaw authorizing the mayor and deputy clerk to sign the subdivision agreement pertaining to Roslyn Estates subdivision Phase 2B, and the council proceeds to enact a bylaw having the effect of removing the holding provision on 5 lots within Roslyn Estates Phase 2B subdivision in order to permit the construction to be completed. Is there any discussion? Councillor LeBlanc.
Through you, Chair. 47 of the subdivision agreement, where it says that the landowner will abide by all the municipal bylaws. In that one, does it also apply, or how does it get cross-referenced to the developer, the builder? Because we're having problems with enforcement of the bylaws. So does it include all our bylaws? And does this plan marry up with the developers and the builder's bylaw?
Through the chair, the subdivision agreement is binding on any future heirs and successors, and that would include builders.
Thank you.
Any other questions or comments? All in favor? Are there any opposed? The motion's carried. Our final staff report is with regard to the Lakeside Landing subdivision agreement, and we don't have anyone here to speak to it. So, Mr. Ty, I'll ask you if you have anything to add or highlight on this report.
Through the chair, I'm prepared to answer questions as long as they're not too technical.
Thank you. I have a motion moved by Councillor Anderson, seconded by Councillor Bateman, that Council authorize the CAO and Mayor to sign a subdivision agreement for the Lakeside Landing subdivision on behalf of the municipality with 952-849 Ontario Limited, amended to reflect a change in the amount of the development securities required. Is there any discussion? Councillor Bateman?
Hopefully Daryl can answer this. This is just more for clarification. So this change makes this consistent with all other development or developers the way they're written out?
Mr. Ty?
Through the chair, that's correct. Following the last report to council, it was realized that the draft subdivision agreement was not consistent with the last 3 subdivisions, and therefore staff undertook a reassessment. The purpose of the reassessment was to bring in line with the last 3 subdivision agreements in the method of calculating letters of credit, but also to ensure that there was no reduction through the letter of credit with respect to the low pressure systems.
Councillor Tadman?
I was going to ask the same question that Councillor Bateman asked, but also I just want to say that I think this report is well written and very clear, and a mistake was made and it's been corrected, so I think we should move forward.
Thank you. Anything further? Mr. Ty, I asked you this, but just for clarity, with regard to the low-pressure pumps, we are taking additional securities from the developer for maintenance, potential maintenance purposes. That hasn't been altered in this agreement. Is that correct?
That's correct. The securities for the low-pressure system remain at 100%. In addition, there will be a 2-year maintenance period as opposed to the standard 1-year maintenance period, and the securities will be held twice as long as other components of the infrastructure.
Thank you. Anything further? All in favor? Are there any opposed? The motion's carried. We have nothing under unfinished business, so we move into bylaws. Our first bylaw is with regard to Roslyn Estate subdivision, moved by Deputy Mayor Vink, seconded by Councillor Rowley. The council gives a bylaw its first, second, and third reading, and finally approves on this date, being a bylaw to authorize the mayor and the clerk to execute an agreement between the Corporation of the Municipality of Brighton and 1751819 Ontario Incorporated regarding a plan of subdivision on a property located in Part Lot 2, Concession 2, and part of lots 9, 10, and 11 in the Municipality of Brighton in the County of Northumberland. Is there any further discussion? All in favor? Any opposed? The motion's carried. Our second bylaw is also with regard to Roslyn Estates, the removal of the hold. Moved by Deputy Mayor Vink, seconded by Councillor Rowley, that council gives a bylaw. It's for second and third reading and finally passes on this date. Being a bylaw to amend bylaw number 059/2015 and bylaw number 140/2002 as amended, and otherwise known as the Comprehensive Zoning Bylaw of the Municipality of Brighton. Is there any discussion? All those in favor? Any opposed? The motion is carried. We'll now move into question period. If anyone present has a question with any item on our agenda, please come forward. Yeah, likely press the button closest to Councillor Bateman on the side of the machine there. Other side. There you go. Right there. Yeah. Yeah, you're good. And now push the purple button in front of you. There you go. Have your say. And this is just to ask a question, not to make a statement or proceed as a delegation. So please ask your question. Yeah.
Okay. Well, Mr. Mayor, councillors, my name is Conrad Ostner. I live at 17 Pier Drive, and my question is with respect to the Butler Creek condominiums. You mentioned that the initial plan is still included, and I did see it in there. It also says that it was revised. Does that not mean that attachment number 2 replaces attachment number 1, so attachment number 1 should be discarded?
No, at this stage, it means that both are under consideration and staff will bring forward the best recommendation after they negotiate with the developer on all sorts of other items in the background.
The reason we ask is because we had that meeting with Mr. LeBlanc, and he listened to us. Don't get me wrong, I do not want to see these condominiums built at all, but at least he was listening to us. And then he came out with his attachment number 2, which is a little better, but we're looking for other things. My second question is probably a two-part. When I built my house, I had to sign a covenant saying that my front and side of the house had brick or stone, because I live on a corner. The side had to be done in stone. In accordance with the bylaws from the town, anything that is to be constructed is to blend into the existing community, correct? These condominiums, and I know you've all seen them because most of you have gone to, if not all of you, have gone to Port Hope, to Cobourg to take a look at them. Personally, to me, they look like barracks. I spent a lot of time in the military, and that's what they look like. If our covenant or our bylaws say that they are to match the existing area or subdivision, then why are they white? Why are they not? Or will you be ensuring that they blend into our area properly?
So I think I'll pass that question over to Mr. Tai, because he would be better to help us interpret those rules. Go ahead.
Through the chair, there are policies that encourage the blending in or homogenizing of new development with existing development. That is not to say that the municipality has the authority to exercise certain architectural and decorative restrictions. That by and large is up to the developer to determine what is appropriate for his development. Having said all that, the municipality will have site plan approval. Beyond the rezoning, the municipality will have site plan approval. There is some authority there for the municipality to require certain architectural consistencies.
I don't mean to go on, but there are some developers that have built condos farther down the road, which blend in very nicely to the community. These units stand out like a sore thumb. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, and I would encourage you to pass on any of those comments to our planning department so that they have them during their process and negotiations with the developer.
You'll send that by email or? Thank you.
Thank you. I'll ask if there are any other questions with regard to anything on our agenda this evening. And thank you, Mr. Osner, by the way. Thank you. Anyone else? You're already on. You're already on.
Well, thank you, sir. Respected councillors here. I've been...
Could you introduce yourself for the record,
I'm
sir?
Steve Franklin, 16
Steve.
Pier.
Thank you.
And this is regarding Butter Creek. I've been to, as you have, over to Coburg and Port Hope. My question is, when you look at those developments, there's usually a road going in and attaches all the way around like a crescent. Why is there not that happening at this development? He has one road in, which then splits and goes around the circle and comes back out to the same one. Would it not be more practical to have the road that goes in off Forest up and around and then back down and hook back into Cedar? Because all those roads on the other ones, they don't hook in or attach in any way, shape, or form to a side street. They're all done to a major direct artery, which would be Cedar Street. Okay, so I don't know why the developer hasn't done that. It's easier access for the people that live there. It's easier access for emergency services. So my question is, why isn't it there? Why hasn't it been proposed? Or is there anything you can do to tell him, no, you got to change that. You got to have it like a big crescent so that the people, if something happens on the north side and the emergency vehicles go in, that's fine. But if something happens down around the south side, I know it's proposed to go down this emergency driveway in. Well, have you ever seen one of those? I was in law enforcement, so it's a joke. You pull up, you got a steel post sticking out of the ground. If you have the key, if not, you got to wait for somebody else to show up. Unlock the lock, pull it out, pull the post out, so everybody can drive up. And same for snow removal, for the condo. They got to unlock it, pull it up, take all the snow out of that driveway, because they can't do municipal, and the municipal can't, obviously isn't responsible for that. Okay? So then they got to lock it back down again. But if you have a crescent type shape to it, you don't have a need for that. And it's easier for emergency services or people going in there to live there to get to their house. They don't have to go the top side up and around this way. All they got to do is come in the bottom one and come directly to their house.
So good question and good comment, and I would encourage you to place that comment with the planning department, because they're the ones who are currently negotiating with the developer for what we will see as a recommendation coming forward.
Along with that, what I'm asking is also the number of houses. Because on the south side, you got 3 that's west of Pier, and you got 2 that are east of Nautical Lane. Well, if you take those 5 out, and I know, the builders, it's just a matter of profit for him. But if you take those 5 out, he's still well within the amount, okay, that he's going to be required to build on that parcel land. So why is he stuffing so many on there? Because if you took out those 5, you could easily put the second half of that road back in and swing it all the way over to Cedar. And then that would give you a bigger environmental buffer zone between the south side of the development and Pier and Nautical. And it would, like I said, be easier access.
So, again, good questions and comments, and I would encourage you to forward them to the planning department, because as I say, they're the ones in negotiations with the developer at the moment.
Like I said, I've seen both plans, and B is better than A, believe me. Okay, but it can still be developed a little bit better for the benefit of everybody, particularly those that are living in there or going to be living in there. Okay?
Thank you, Mr. Franklin.
Thanks for your time.
Any other questions from members of the public on the agenda? So we have no in-camera session this evening, which moves us to our confirmatory bylaw. It's moved by Deputy Mayor Vink, seconded by Councillor Rowley. The council gives a bylaw. It's first, second, and third reading, and finally passes on this date. Being a bylaw to confirm the proceedings of the Corporation of the Municipality of Brighton Council meeting held on March 9th, 2020. Is there any discussion? All in favor? Any opposed? The motion's carried. And I have a motion moved by Councilor Rowley, second by Deputy Mayor Vink, that the March 9th, 2020 council planning meeting adjourn at 6:54 PM. Is there any discussion? All those in favor? Are there any opposed? The motion's carried.